What we're doing today is we're holding an annual event called the Day in the Trenches. Today we're hoping that the visitors who come here get an experience of how the soldiers lived while training, what was it like behind the lines in the headquarters. They'll get some demonstrations on bayonet training, how to defend themselves. There'll be the trench routine in how the soldiers conducted themselves in the training, in the trenches or during the actual fighting. There are some temporary exhibits. Today we have a private collector who wants to remain anonymous, has a beautiful collection of World War I German firearms. And it's a welcome addition to what's on this side. You know, we have a nice collection of Canadian military, but it's nice to see what the enemy used, and he brought it out today. And there's also a special exhibit on the paper war. We call it papers, documents, posters of Canada in the First World War. So there's sheet music, there's letters, there's diaries on exhibit today. Plus, there's also the museum in the basement, where we have a gentleman who came all the way from Saskatchewan, from Regina Military Museum, to manage the museum in the basement.
All right, welcome to your bayonet training session with Private Bazin here. Just as a reminder, since you can see the Germans, they can see you, so try and stay low. You'll see that one of our roads in the trenches has a particular name. Sadly, one of my comrade over there is 6'4", so he's not really safe anywhere in the trenches, unless it was a properly dug trench at 8 foot depth. So bayonets, Private Tascona mentioned them a little earlier. They're your secondary weapon that attaches to your short magazine Lee Enfield. That's a misnomer. People go, oh, it has a shorter magazine. Actually, no, we had one of the highest magazine capacities in the entire war. 10 rounds magazine capacity. The Germans and everybody else are doing on average 5-round magazines, and the French have this weird 8-round under the muzzle thing that nobody else does. So the reason we call it a short rifle is because prior to this, its dad, I guess, was a normal size infantry rifle. But because the cavalry, once you adopt a rifle, the cavalry needs their own carbine version, the engineers need their own carbine version, the artillery need their own version, and the rifle regiments need their own version, the British government went, well, let's just do one universal short rifle. And they can all complain all they want, but that's all they're getting. So even the cavalry, which would never use a bayonet, or almost never until this war, where they would be dismounted and be told, you're the infantry again, and if there's a breakthrough, get on your horses and get through, which is the reason bayonets exist. So the British have been issuing bayonets since the late 1600s, because we at one point decided that musketeers and pikemen, as useful as it is, the pikemen aren't very assaulty. They're just standing there with pikes going, we hope the cavalry comes so we can do something. And so the idea was give everybody a musket and give them a thing they can shove down the muzzle to defend against cavalry, because your muskets are yay tall. So you can have a short pike, and the horses are smart animals. They'll be like, oh, I don't like that sharp thing. I'm not going to run myself into it. So you can keep the cavalry at bay while the guys behind you, they pull the trigger. Now, 1916, we're still worried about cavalry, because the Germans break through, guess what's coming in? Guys on horseback with 12-foot lances. But the same thing, if we break through, in goes our cavalry with 12-foot lances. So that can become a problem for the infantry. So in a trench, cavalry ain't gonna really get to me. But out of a trench, I'm a easy target. So bayonets are important for that, but also for hand-to-hand combat, which they've been for since they've been around, but they're really not a most useful weapon because you have to fight with a spear now, although mine is a shooty spear. I can still fire out of this, unlike the early bayonets would plug your muzzle. Now, you'll notice that I can't really extend very far to protect from horses, but at least a sharp thingy makes the horse think once or twice. But in the trenches, this is a very long weapon. So yes, at Camp Hughes in 1915, I would have done my training. I would have been taught bayonet fighting or bayonet fencing, which it's not just, oh, play stabby, because, well, if they're doing the same thing, you want to get their bayonet out of the way. So that's where you do what we call fencing. So if an enemy attacks me, I want to move their bayonet out of the way so I can then attack them. One problem. As soon as I'm no longer in contact with their weapon, what are they going to do? So what you want to do is you want to keep in contact with either their rifle or their bayonet. So I'd move his bayonet out of the way, and I would be, when you use a bayonet, you always want to be on the offensive. So it's not like, ooh, backing up. You want to be moving into it. So I would parry or block, step into it, smack him across the chin, and now that he's on the ground, run him through. And that's the quick way to use a bayonet. Get in, do the job, move forward. Because if you get in a prolonged fencing match, eventually I'm just going to grab his gun, and which is a problem with bayonets. If he doesn't have a rifle with a bayonet on it, and he has, say, a trench club or a small knife, he can just grab my muzzle, and now he has the complete control. So that's why bayonets started losing their immediate purpose as on a rifle. However, now I have a long knife, and I would take out, where is it hiding? A piece of equipment called an entrenching handle. So I have a tool on my bum, which is an entrenching tool to help me dig trenches quickly. It has a handle with a head on it that's made of metal. This is now a mace, and I'm going to bash you across the noggin. Or I'm going to send a letter home to Dad and be like, hey Dad, send me some brass knuckles. Send me another knife, because that's what it became. I could do this, have my trench handle, I can block and come in and whack you and finish you off as well. So yeah, there are tactics such as each platoon has 4 sections. One is a rifle section, one is a grenadier section, one is a rifle grenadier section, and one is a machine gun section. Well, the rifle grenadiers, or the grenadiers, or bombers, because we called grenades bombs then, there's guys in there that use the bayonet a lot, and guys with their grenades. Big bag of grenades, and what they do, and you'll see the fire bays, is you'd be in one fire bay, and you chuck a grenade into the next fire bay, and their bayonet men, as soon as that grenade goes off, rush around to get all the dazed Germans. Or they're going to see the grenade land and then run around the corner and be like, hi! And I'm going to get them. So the bayonet has a purpose when used in a tactical fashion, but on its own, in immediate fighting one-on-one, I'd rather just use my club and move his out of the way and bash him. It's faster and he gets out of the way. But you also notice this is very long, and the trench is only 4 foot wide. Well, if he comes out of a dugout here, I'm not going to be able to move it. But if Dad sent me brass knuckles, pop! In the face, pull the trigger, move on. So I'm going to demonstrate the offensive spirit of the bayonet on my funky looking German here. So you normally do this, you don't have a round in the chamber, it can help. So I would advance, parry, and stab, twist, retire. If the bayonet does not want to come out of that German, because I hit him in the rib cage, I pull the trigger. The recoil should get it out. If that doesn't do it, I play the twisty game until I can get it out.
Why wouldn't you pull the trigger in the first place rather than...
Because now, if I pull that trigger, I have to now rack that bolt again. And if someone pops out of another corner further down aiming at me, well, So you want to preserve that round in your chamber if you have to use it. Now, some of you, or in your timeline, you may have something called, some of you have something called moving pictures, I believe. Whatever that is. And you may have seen a bayonet charge in your moving pictures where they start from one end of the field and they run as fast as they can to the other end of the field, going, ah! Who wants to wear an 80-pound pack, run across the muddy battlefield, 500 meters, and then have the spirit and energy to fight the Germans on the other end? Anyone? Show of hands, anyone? Oh boy, I guess I'm alone. So the reality is that by 1916 we're using small unit tactics. Yes, we come out of the trench, yes, we charge bayonets, but then we break out into our sections and work in platoons. So as my section would advance, the other sections would cover me. So we're leapfrogging each other. And once you get really close to the Germans, that's when you come out of your little hidey hole where you're firing from and run into the trench or jump in there ready to fight. Hopefully you land well or you break an ankle. So the bayonet is a useful tool. Now, yelling when using the bayonet is a thing. And the way it's done is once everyone's out of the trench, you are given the order to charge bayonets, at which point you'd point it forward and yell, huzzah. So something along the lines of, everyone's lined up, charge bayonets, huzzah! And you're gonna march across that field till you're close enough to run and then engage your enemy. And if you have to fire on the move, you can, although it's not very accurate to fire from the hip. Fair enough? Any questions about the bayonet or hand-to-hand fighting?
Why was huzzah?
The huzzah has been around since the 17 and 1600s. It's just as a rally cry to give that extra little, get them going, make them all yell, and they all have that support from everybody going, yeah! Versus just everybody running and screaming like a bunch of banshees. It's more useful to have it as a team spirit and teamwork where everybody yells on the command, you yell huzzah, you move together. It helps that, as the French would call, esprit de corps, or esprit de corps, or in French, l'élan. Spirit gets you there, and that's your spirit. The pokey stick at the end of the shorter rifle. Yeah, so this is what we Canadians, we also use the Ross rifle, but we don't like it because it jams really, really easy. It was a target rifle that they put into military service, and so unless the ammunition is just right, you're going to be trying to kick your bolt open because it would jam so bad, which means I have to stand while the Boche shoot at me. So yeah, but the Canadian snipers really, really liked the Ross. It's very accurate, and they always had first pick of the ammunition. We had the last pick. Actually went aircraft, snipers, machine gunners, then us, which meant all the bad ammo they didn't want ends up with the infantry. And that's why the Lee Enfield is good, because even if things aren't perfect, it just does the job. Yeah. This is our rifle, and yeah, that's the bayonet. The bayonet at one point was fancier because it could be used to stack the weapons, where you would hook three of them together and make a little tripod. Then they went to a stacking swivel because that little extra bit of metal, if you don't use it, after you've made enough bayonets, you can make a whole new bayonet out of it. So, penny pinching during the war. So all the pre-war bayonets are fancy, and all the war bayonets are, nah, make it simple, make it work. Nobody cares. It don't have to be pretty. It just gotta work. Also, the early bayonets weren't very good steel and they would snap. They figured out during the war, maybe we should work them better. Any questions? Yes?
Did the average soldier have to sharpen his bayonet?
You aren't supposed to technically sharpen your bayonet, but again, you can use it for other things than just fighting. You may be told, you put a sign up, oh, that sign looks funky, and you can use it to like a spoke shave if you want. So some men sharpen their bayonets, and most bayonets we see today, it could be that after conflict they were sharpened by the collectors, or during the conflict itself. We were sharpening bayonets because my bayonet can slash. And if we look at the French bayonet, which is just a cruciform shape, just a cross, literally a cross section, it's only good for poking. You can beat someone with it, but you can't cut. So this gives me advantage of also being able to do what's called a pole cut, so I can stab near the neck and come back down and cut the neck and stuff like that. That's the advantage of having a blade bayonet versus a spike bayonet, which is only good for the stab. Yeah, so some do, some don't. In apparently your timeline's modern military, you're not supposed to sharpen your bayonet. If it's a weapon, I'm going to make sure it functions. That's pretty much soldiers since the start of time.